We are talking about the action horror movie Havana Darkness. This one is directed by Guillermo Ivan, and I would best describe this movie as Hostel meets The Most Dangerous Game. So what it focuses on, three adult friends, two of which are a couple. There's this couple, and there's this guy. The third one is this gent who is kind of somewhat obsessed with Ernest Hemingway, and through a series of events he gets his hands on what he thinks is a potentially undiscovered kind of manuscript by Ernest Hemingway, and it may kind of you know, lead to a bigger kind of conspiracy and mystery. So the three of them head off to Cuba. This one guy, because he wants to kind of like do more research in regards to this kind of like this Ernest Hemingway you know, situation. The other two kind of tag along because the guy wants to propose to his girlfriend, and he figures that Cuba is you know, kind of a nice place to do it. So they sort of tag along at the same time, and when they're there, they get on this, you know, a series of kind of events leads them to this kind of particular building, where they discover that there is a dangerous secret within this particular building, and they are hunted by this kind of this organisation that seems to be, you know, all-encompassing, very kind of a larger organisation that actually is hunting them for some type of kind of like sports, a la The Most Dangerous Game. So that's your kind of your basic setup here. So what do we think of Havana Darkness? So this is actually filmed in Cuba, which kind of gives it a kind of a unique kind of flavour to it. So it's kind of nice to see, you know, it's English language. There is a few kind of like little kind of conversations in Spanish, but it's all subtitled. But there's not much, to be fair. So it gives it a kind of a, you know, a kind of somewhat of a different feel, some of a kind of a, you know, a foreign feel to it to a certain degree. One of the things that struck me here is the horror elements of this kind of movie are very well done, and there's some really kind of quite believable kind of prosthetics on display here. Wounds that, you know, people get kind of shot through with arrows and things like that, and the kind of the way the blood squibs. It's all kind of practical, so don't worry about that. They all look pretty gruesome and quite realistic, and that was that. And there's, you know, there's a good coat, you know, slicing scene. All looks good. It all looks very kind of authentic, very well kind of well photographed, and obviously the actual prosthetics and the kind of the makeup all looks fantastic. Then we have our kind of killers, all who have these kind of like paintball type masks on, but sort of done up to look particularly scary. They all look kind of pretty scary as well. The actual, I like the fact that they cast more kind of middle-aged protagonists. So unlike your kind of a lot of movies where you'll get, you know, teenagers / young adults, here these guys are, you know, between 35 and kind of 45. So it's kind of nice to see somewhat of an older, you know, bunch of protagonists, basically. I also like the fact that you don't really know who is the kind of our main protagonist to a certain degree. It kind of like, everyone gets a kind of a good amount of sort of screen time, really, and it kind of switches up who you may think the main protagonist. So that was quite good. And it does have an attempt, certainly in the first half of the movie, to get on more of a kind of a mystery route. I mean, it really doesn't seem like a horror film, the first half of the film. You know, it's kind of going down almost like a, you know, what's the Tom Hanks series of films, like The Angels and Demons, that sort of thing. You know, kind of a variety of kind of different clues, and leads them down kind of different investigatory paths and things like that. So I appreciated that. I don't think it worked particularly well, but I appreciated the attempt. That sort of leads me into kind of any kind of negatives here. I do think the story was a little muddled, and in some respects doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, I won't spoil anything for you, but even right up to the end, the kind of the epilogue here, I didn't feel was particularly kind of logical. It maybe to say it didn't make sense, it's too strong. but it didn't feel logical. It didn't feel like it would happen in a kind of a real situation, if that makes sense. There are kind of a little bit of kind of like silly things that happen. Some of the kind of the way the characters are written, again, it just seems a little bit illogical. People kind of wouldn't do certain things, and it just seems to kind of like people don't do realistic things in favour of kind of progressing the plot forward. Ultimately, I think the acting was, for the most part, okay, but I didn't think it was fantastic acting. But it was passable acting, I would say. So not maybe not a criticism, but the acting was okay. But I don't think it was particularly from our kind of our Cuban character. I don't know. He just seemed a little bit too self-absorbed in kind of maybe kind of becoming again a little bit unbelievable in places, but never to an extreme. It's like I said, it's not bad acting necessarily. It's just maybe not the best acting I've ever seen, if that kind of makes sense. And then when we kind of get into our kind of more horror elements towards the kind of the latter half of the movie, the way the killers are acting, I didn't really understand the motivations of it. I mean, it's in a game, but I didn't see what was the purpose. Are they hunting for sport? You know, who's behind it? Is it a case of that whoever kills the first wins? Because they seem to be taking their sweet time about it sometimes, and I didn't feel there's not enough established kind of what's going on. I mean, if you look at films like this, it's similar to, and I'll take, because it is a mix between Hostel and The Most Dangerous Game, and that's obviously spinned out loads of different kind of you know, similar movies like Hard Target and stuff. But you understood what their game was. It was they're like big game hunting. They did it for, you know, the winner got money, whatever. But here, we don't really know. There doesn't seem to be any kind of actual reason for it outside of they're hunting people for some particular reason, and they're fishing in particular people. But I don't know why. I don't think it was particularly as well explained. But overall, it's a watchable kind of action horror film. I think the effects here are very, very good and worth watching. It's nice to see a kind of a film take place in the Cuba with kind of adult kind of cast. I'd say it's worth a 6 out of 10, this movie. It's certainly, I would say, above average. You're kind of straight to VOD kind of fare. It's worth watching. It has enough kind of like new stuff in it to kind of give it a watch, but I don't feel it kind of breaks the mould in any kind of particular way, and maybe it could have tightened up the writing a little bit for me. But it's worth a watch, and like I've said, there's some decent gore here and some quite violent sort of sequences, and if you're a fan of things like Hostel, you'll enjoy this kind of movie. 6 out of 10, have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.